All right, I'm sure you've heard the Honda Hornet CB1000 has been debuted in Europe. And I'm a little bit late on this news, but I think there's a lot to talk about this bike because I think it's going to flip the script completely on what we've come to expect from Japanese motorcycles coming to the United States. I got to talk about this new Honda Hornet CB1000 and the spicy SP model that just dropped in Europe. My fingers crossed is that this motorcycle comes to the US market. This thing represents an enormous shift, in my opinion, of motorcycles that are bloated with features, way too expensive, and just getting a bit silly overall. This bike is coming in at a ridiculous price over in Europe, under £10,000 sterling in the UK. That means we might get this motorcycle here in the United States for maybe a little over $11,000. Talk about value first. In fact, that's the number one thing I'm seeing in the comments about this motorcycle is just how much Honda has nailed the price and how they're really meeting the moments of very value-driven, price-conscious consumers in motorcycling right now. Nobody wants to spend 19 grand on a motorcycle. That sucks. And when we talk through the specs on this bike, you'll understand why this is so special. Now, it's a bit of a parts bin motorcycle using components from a lot of different bikes in Honda's lineup, but you might come to understand that this Honda Hornet 1000 or the CB1000, depending on how they're going to name it here in the United States, if it comes to the United States, is more than the sum of its parts. And look, you guys know I'm not a Honda fanboy, this one really is special. So why is it so special and what makes it so unique? Let's talk about the fact that most new motorcycles when they come out don't oversimplify where the previous bike came from. Typically we see more features, more benefits, more traction control, more electronics, more power, all that sort of thing. But Honda's strategy with the Hornet is basically strip away everything except exactly what the rider needs. And it's gonna officially be the most affordable 1000cc Japanese inline-4 machine that you can buy, period. I mean, to put this into context, this bike is undercutting the MT-10 by like $4,000. That's crazy. This bike costs less, in theory, than some MT-09 models. It costs less than a street triple. And look, the new Hornet doesn't really have that big of shoes to fill because the CB1000R was a bit of a strange bird in this category. If you guys remember, I reviewed this motorcycle in the kind of black edition or midnight edition, whatever that Honda was calling it, the all blacked out CB1000R. And it's a bit strange. Yes, it makes great amount of power, but it really is more of a laid back, old school UJM inline-4 machine that has some nice tech sprinkled onto it. It certainly is not a hyper naked motorcycle. The new CB1000 Hornet shares a lot of the chassis components with the CB1000R, but has a couple key critical differences. So obviously it has cosmetic differences, it looks a little bit different, and it has this new kind of Street Fighter-esque look. Kind of a dollar store Ducati if you ask me, but that's really no bad thing. It has a double-sided swing arm instead of the single-sided swing arm from the CB1000R, simpler wheels, and overall just a simpler execution. Instead of looking for ways to charge more for this model, Honda actually looked for the opposite, which again is kind of unforeseen in today's economy and in today's motorcycling world. But Honda being Honda, it's still a quality product and they didn't really cut corners. So this motorcycle is featuring a 2017 plus detuned CBR 1000RR Fireblade engine. It's got an improved frame to optimize for torsional rigidity. It has a different state of tune to optimize for mid-range power, which is really great to see. It has a lower compression ratio, new cam profiles, and is more optimized for street riding. If you're thinking, wow, that's gonna be super reliable because it's a hopped up engine that they literally made run way cooler and way simpler, you'd be right. And it's a tried and true platform too that's been in development for decades at this point. The standard model is going to make 150 horsepower at 11,000 RPM and 77 foot-pounds of torque at 9,000 RPM. Those are pretty solid figures for a bike that, again, costs as little as this thing does. But it doesn't end there. The new Hornet 1000 uses a fully adjustable Showa unit up at the front, and the base Hornet has an adjustable Showa unit at the rear. It also has radially mounted Nissan calipers, which is to be expected with a bike that produces this much horsepower. Got to make sure you can stop. It has a 465-pound curb weight, so it's no svelte Ducati product, and it's certainly no lightweight KTM machine, but that's kind of par for the course for Honda, and you have to save costs somewhere, and making a motorcycle a little bit heavier typically is somewhere that manufacturers can save money. Considering it has a true blue 4-cylinder engine, people may be willing to overlook some of these issues just to get that pure sound. Now, the SP model has a few tweaks to it. The SP version has an exhaust valve that bumps from 150 horsepower to 155 horsepower. The valve is closed at around 6,000 RPM, and then above that it opens up to give it a little bit more juice. It also makes a teensy bit more torque at 79 foot-pounds at that same 9,000 RPM. The Hornet SP does use a higher spec Öhlins rear shock, which is really nice to have. And it has Brembo Stylema calipers up at the front. It also comes with a quick shifter as standard. Both models are lighter and more powerful than the outgoing CB1000R at a significantly lower price point. So what do you get for tech? Well, quite a bit actually. You get multiple ride modes. You have rain, standard, sport, and then 2 customizable modes. You have 4 traction control settings, 3 brake and engine control settings. If you're familiar with Honda's products, you know about that. And wheelie control. It's also going to come with the TFT dash, which is kind of par standard for the course nowadays. Now, this motorcycle doesn't come with an IMU system, but again, it's a bargain basement motorcycle. It has to cut costs somewhere. The Hornet SP only comes in black, the kind of gold bronze wheel combo.
Folks, time is running out to win this Ninja 500 that I have on YamiNoob.co. We've had a lot of fun with this motorcycle, put a lot of miles on it, but it's time to say goodbye. Head over to the website and become a member for your best chance to win. The sweepstakes is wrapping up, so don't miss our awesome multipliers on all merch purchases on the store as well. But if you become a member, you'll get to find out what the next giveaway bike is and get your entries locked and loaded for that one as well. I'm actually looking at it right over there, and it's a pretty sweet ride. Spoiler alert, it's yellow. Make sure you go to the website and don't miss your chance to win. Time is running out.
Now, in the UK, the pricing for the Hornet is set at £89.99 sterling. I don't know how they're doing that. I want you guys to really understand that price point. I mean, it's less than a Daytona 660. It's less than an R7. Like, how is that even, how are we talking about this? If you consider something like the Z900, it makes way more peak power and it's less expensive. The MT-09 costs $10,600 in base trim, and the Hornet makes more peak power and has an extra cylinder and a similar level of technology, albeit without that IMU or cruise control the MT-09 comes with. So the Hornet 1000 is really in a position to shake up the market, because one of the biggest things happening in motorcycling right now is not really a race to the bottom, but it's a fight to compete at the lower end of the spectrum. And we've seen CF Moto do this over and over again, where they create motorcycles that are pretty much as good as the competition, but usually for $500 to $1,000 less than what's currently offered. A motorcycle with a Honda badge on it at this price point with this kind of spec is ridiculous. There's no point to buy a CF Moto product if a Honda like this exists. What's also interesting is that Honda, despite being the gold standard of reliability and a lot of riders' top choices, is usually seen as the more expensive option. In fact, I usually clown on Honda for creating the CBR 500R and pricing it way more than the Ninja 500s, but people say, well, it's got Honda, it's got brand cachet. The Hornet is eschewing all of that. And Honda's got sales volume to sell this motorcycle at a low price, but the know-how and the production capabilities to keep the reliability and production quality very high on this machine. And let's be honest, Suzuki can compete because they're selling 20-year-old motorcycle designs. This Honda Hornet is new. It's using older tech and using some older features, but I think we've reached diminishing returns with some of these inline-4 engines, and I don't really need a 2025 spec inline-4 if I'm just looking for a naked bike to cruise around and have some fun with, and the Hornet certainly fits that bill. Yamaha spent all of their money on the R9 platform, leaving their MT-07 a little bit out to dry. Even though they just recently updated it a little bit, that engine is still the same, and Yamaha's printing R&D money on that all day long. And boutique brands like KTM, Aprilia, or even Ducati, BMW to an extent, couldn't even dream of touching this price point with this type of feature and spec. Honestly, Honda really is pulling a CF Moto here. And really, this is what Japanese motorcycles need to be doing. They have that tried and true reputation for reliability. They just need to bring back the value-driven aspect to the fold, and consumers will come back to these brands in droves. Like, let's be real. Do you really think that someone would choose a CF Moto over a Honda if the prices were very close and comparable? Probably not. Honda's been producing quality motorcycles since the 70s. CF Moto, not so much. And it's really unique to see this at the higher end of the hyper naked and naked motorcycle market, as opposed to doing it in the beginner bike segment, because we're seeing this a lot with beginner bikes. Triumph came out the 400s. We have all sorts of motorcycles racing to the bottom to be value driven and small because that's relatively easier to do. Honda doing high-end disruption as opposed to low-end disruption is very unique. I really hope this Hornet 1000 lands stateside because I am really excited about it, and there is a litany of new motorcycles coming out that we are definitely going to be covering here on Yami Noob. We're just waiting for all the information to trickle in. We're going to render a verdict on all these brand new bikes, but this one is pretty special in my opinion. So what do you guys think about this new Hornet 1000? Do you think it really is the insane value-driven proposition it portends to be? Or do you think that this motorcycle is just a parts bin special and Honda will sell a few of them, but ultimately people are going to stick to that tried and true middleweight formula, the MT-09s, the Street Triples, the Dukes? Let me know down below in the comments. I love seeing Honda doing stuff like this, trying something new and unique. And speaking of unique, they've got lots of unique stuff coming out at EICMA that we'll definitely be covering in later videos. Boosted V3 motorcycles is definitely one that I did not have on my bingo card. So we'll have plenty more to talk about here on the channel. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. And I appreciate everyone checking out the video. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.
The video is over, but you know what's also almost over? The sweepstakes for this Ninja 500. Make sure you go to the website and get your chances locked and loaded to win. While this next Yami Noob video is queuing up, you can head over to the website and just become a member. It's that easy and simple. What are you waiting for? You're gonna disappoint me. Are you gonna disappoint me like you did with your dad? Is that what you're gonna do? Well, there it is. I'm disappointed in you because you didn't become a member. Wow. Wow.